resulting from an abortion. And to be crystal clear, this legislation does not increase taxes. And at this time, Madam Speaker, I'd like to submit a letter, Americans for Tax Reform, for the record to that effect.
Without objection.
This legislation makes specific and narrow changes to the tax code. So if funds in a FSA or health savings account are used to pay for an abortion, those dollars will not receive tax-favored treatment. Prevents the cost of abortion from counting toward the deduction for unreimbursed medical expenses, and clarifies tax subsidies made available in 2010 health law for the purchase of insurance cannot be used for policies that cover abortion. Madam Speaker, H.R. 3 is pro-life, pro-family, and it is pro-taxpayer. It's a responsible step to ensuring a long-standing precedent Republicans, Democrats have supported for decades, and I urge all members to support H.R. 3 so that no taxpayer funds are used for abortion. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Michigan.
Could I ask the balance of our time, Ways and Means, please? How much?
3.
I used my full 2 minutes? I did. All right. I'll yield a minute and a half to another member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Blumenauer of Oregon.
The gentleman is recognized for a minute and a half.
Thank you. My friend from Michigan said it right. There are no federal funds for abortion under the Hyde Amendment, except in the case of rape and incest. What this is about is how families spend their money and small business deals with insurance. It's part of a continuing Republican assault against people with whom they disagree. It continues the sad spectacle of using the Internal Revenue Service, I would say not just the use, but the abuse of the IRS to attack people with whom they disagree. Remember the spectacle of the Ways and Means hearing where they drug AARP before them and tried to have an investigation because they disagreed with them on health insurance. Yes, this would put government between doctors and American families. But it's not just about abortion under the Hyde Amendment. Remember, there are some people who are against the rape and incest exemption. There are some people who had a shocking proposal to redefine the very definition of rape. There is a continuing effort to erode basic fundamental reproductive freedom, and this shows a tactic of using the IRS that I think is very dangerous. It does, in fact, raises the complexity and taxes on individuals who may, in fact, need these procedures and may, in fact, be life-saving. They may not agree, but their doctor disagrees. This is a specter of using the tax code and investigating power in ways that no one should support.
Fired. Gentleman from Texas.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to a nurse and a member of the Ways and Means Committee, the distinguished gentlelady from Tennessee, Ms. Black.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today we have heard many misrepresentations of the true nature of this bill, and so I want to boil it down to the simple facts of what this bill actually does. No hyperbole, no scare tactics. This bill codifies the Hyde Amendment that no taxpayer dollars will go to funding abortions. And this is a long-standing policy of the federal government since 1976. We already know how medical expenses of all sorts are treated under the tax code. Taxpayers who use itemized deductions for medical expenses, who have HSAs or FSAs or MSAs, do not, and I want to highlight that, do not identify each medical expense on an individual tax return. That is not the case today, nor will it be the case if this bill is signed into law. And to be clear, what this bill does not do, a woman would not have to list on a tax form that a specific medical expense was for an abortion. That's simply not how the process works. It's not how it works today, nor will it be how it works if this is signed into law. So it's important to make clear that no one would ever be audited because of an abortion. They would have to already be under an audit for some other reason before. And I want to emphasize that before the IRS would even consider asking for any medical, asking about any medical procedure. Many types of medical care are very private. And as a nurse for over 40 years, I fully understand how personal medical issues can be. And taxpayers who don't want to tell the IRS about medical procedures they wish to be kept private can do so by not claiming those tax credits for such care. Now, even if this issue did arise in an audit, other federal agencies that already use taxpayer dollars, such as Medicaid and the Federal Employee Health Benefit Program.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
I yield an additional 30 seconds.
30 seconds to the gentlelady.
Have had no problem distinguishing between abortions following rape and incest and elective abortions, and have done so without a reporting requirement. It's already there. They generally accept the statement of the provider, basically a doctor's note, and I would expect the IRS to do the same in these extremely rare cases. Now, that doesn't mean that this is not a very difficult situation for that small group of women, and I understand it is incredibly difficult, and my heart goes out to them. But if we claim a tax benefit for a medical procedure like an abortion, and you get audited, you can either choose to forego that tax benefit or else prepare to substantiate the tax benefit. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Michigan?
It's now we have a minute and a half left.
Yes.
It's now my pleasure to yield the balance of our time to a very distinguished member of our committee, Mr. Crowley.
Gentleman's recognized for a minute and a half. Without objection.
I thank the gentle speaker for yielding me the time and the gentleman from Michigan for doing so as well. With all due respect to my colleague, Ms. Black, when someone comes to the floor and says, I'm going to speak now free of hyperbole, well, it'll be so high up to your neck, you don't have to worry about getting it off your shoe. Because the reality is, that was all hyperbole. If what we were doing here right now was simply codifying existing law, there would probably be very little angst on this side of the aisle, but that's not what's happening. What this provision does is goes so much further. It only speaks to the ideological purge that you're on right now. Madam Speaker, on the 100th day of Republican rule of the House, I stood speechless on this floor at their failed campaign promise to focus on job creation and economic growth. It said actions speak louder than words, and that is true. For all the Republicans talk about putting Americans back to work, their actions demonstrate this is the least of their priorities. Instead, they have cut jobs, they have raised taxes, and reduced Americans' access to health care. The bill being debated today also has no jobs component whatsoever. Not a single job will be created because of this bill today. In fact, it will raise taxes and hamper the ability of small businessmen and women to hire people. In their ideological zeal to restrict a woman's right to choose, the Republicans have prioritized a measure that the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce calls, and I quote, a slap in the face to small business owners. We just, a few weeks ago, removed the 1099 onerous provisions. And now we're going to further burden small businessmen and women with this provision. It will burden them. It will not create a single job. It will only further burden the ability of small businessmen and women to create jobs in America. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Madam Speaker, how much time is remaining, may I inquire?
Time for the Committee on Ways and Means has expired.
Okay.
Such times as I consume. Am I first? Or do they say anything?
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume. Madam Speaker, the bill before us today should be a no-brainer. Americans overwhelmingly reject the use of taxpayer funds for abortion. In several polls over the last few years, anywhere from 60 to 70% of the public oppose using taxpayer funds for abortion. H.R. 3 puts into statute the will of the American people. Since 1976, the Hyde Amendment has been included in appropriations bills to ensure that federal funds are not used to provide abortions. This policy provision has passed year in and year out with bipartisan support. H.R. 3 would just take that provision and put it into law. This may make sense to most Americans, but for some reason this idea receives great pushback in Washington. Health care reform also placed abortion funding at the center of its debate. In their haste to pass Obamacare last Congress, the Democrat leadership in Washington neglected to include any adequate prohibition on abortion funding. The President did issue an executive order to support the intentions of Hyde. Unfortunately, the order merely reiterated the accounting gimmick in the health care bill. The President's own Chief of Staff at that time would later comment on how he thought up the idea for this executive order so that they could, quote, allow the Stupak Amendment not to exist by law but by executive order, end quote. When the President signed that bill into law, he allowed a massive expansion in federal funding for abortion. In a time of great federal debt, the last thing the American people want is to have their taxpayer dollars used on the morally objectionable practice of abortion. According to a 2007 Guttmacher Institute report, if the Hyde Amendment was removed from law, the number of abortions would likely increase by 25%. The study reveals what is common sense. An increase in funding for abortions will directly lead to an increase in the number of abortions. Many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have expressed their desire to reduce abortions. If that is truly their desire and not just a talking point, then they should have no problem at all voting in favor of this bill. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from Colorado.
Madam Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this extreme legislation and yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Schakowsky.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to H.R. 3, the so-called No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act. But don't be confused. H.R. 3 goes far beyond current law, which is already highly restrictive and, frankly, which I oppose. The Hyde Amendment already prohibits women enrolled in Medicaid and Medicare, federal employees, women serving in the military, women in federal prisons, Peace Corps volunteers, and women seeking care under the Indian Health Services Act from getting the care they need. In other words, there is no federal funding for abortion. But actually what it does do, among other things, is attack small businesses. Let's hear the words of Frank Knapp, Jr., President and CEO of the South Carolina Small Business Chamber of Commerce with 5,000 members. Here's what he says. H.R. 3 is an attempt to roll back the historic small business health insurance tax credit created by the Affordable Care Act. When the House voted to eliminate and defeat the entire Affordable Care Act, we, he means small businesses, could rationalize that this great benefit for small businesses was just collateral damage. My own congressman told me he would support the small business health insurance tax credits in the Affordable Care Act replacement legislation. But small businesses can no longer think of themselves as collateral damage. Mr. Knapp says, let me make this very clear. A vote for H.R. 3 is a direct attack on small business. Every representative who loudly proclaims their love for small businesses because We are the backbone. You know, that's what we all say. They are the backbone of the economy. Now can put their vote where their mouth is. Their true support for small business will be judged by their no vote on H.R. 3. I urge all my colleagues not to let this phony use of the tax code to take away the rights of small businesses to get tax credits or individuals to pay for abortions with their own money.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
For the information of the members, the Hyde Amendment only applies to the Labor H bill. It's offered every year as a rider. Similar language is offered to Indian Health, Federal Employee Health Benefits Act. We've done these amendments or riders to these bills every year for years. So when you speak about the Hyde Amendment, we should speak about it accurately. I yield at this time to the gentlelady from Missouri, Ms. Hartzler, such time as she may consume.
The gentlelady is recognized for such time as she may consume.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 3. This is not a controversial bill. This is a common sense bill to rein in our runaway government spending and to quit spending money on things that the American citizens don't want. Certainly, we should not be spending our hard-earned tax dollars on abortion. People work hard all year to send in their taxes on April 15th. And they shouldn't have their money going to something that is morally objectionable to them, that takes away the human life. There are many, many areas of this budget that we need to rein in, but this is non-controversial. This is something that over 60% of the American people say, I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for abortions, the taking of a human innocent life. And so it's time to make this permanent so that we don't have to, as a Congress, come in every year and discuss these issues on all the different legislation that is out there. Now is the time to make this permanent, get off the table so that we can get on to the other areas of reining in the runaway spending, making government more efficient, more effective, using our tax dollars more wisely. And certainly it is not an affront to women's health. Women have opportunity to get the health care that they need now, but we don't need to be using it to take innocent human life. I certainly applaud this bill, and that's why it has so many co-sponsors. We need to make sure that our tax dollars are not used to pay for abortion. Madam Speaker, I yield back my time. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Colorado.
Speaker, I'm now pleased to yield to a senior member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Engel of New York. 1 minute.
Mr. Engel, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. You know, I think my friends on the other side of the aisle think that if they repeat something again and again, people will begin to believe it. The fact of the matter is the Hyde Amendment already prohibits federal funds from being used for abortion. This is not about federal funds. The other thing I don't understand is my Republican friends always claim that they want smaller government. They don't want the government to intrude on people's lives. So here we're about to pass a measure that expands government, intrudes on people's lives, and penalizes small businesses and impedes them from creating jobs. I don't believe the government should be in the business of preventing people from accessing legal medical treatment. It surprises me and worries me that this Congress keeps proposing legislation that diminishes the right to access health care. Abortion is legal in this country. I understand how people feel on both sides of the aisle. It's a very personal decision. Yet Republicans seem intent on interfering with a woman's right to make her own decisions with her family and physicians using her private money. Abortion's a difficult choice, to be sure, and this extreme legislation makes the decision even harder. We need to provide women and their families with the support they need to make health decisions, not criminalize them. Vote no on this bill.
Time has expired. The gentleman
Madam
from
Speaker, how much
Pennsylvania.
time is remaining?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I yield the 30 seconds to the gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Fox.
Gentlelady is recognized. 30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague from Pennsylvania for his leadership on this issue and for yielding time. Madam Speaker, not using the hard-earned money of taxpayers to destroy innocent unborn children is not extreme, it is not radical. It is the right thing to do. The majority of Americans agree with us, Madam Speaker, that it is the wrong thing to use their money for this issue. And I want to support my colleague in this legislation and say we need to pass this bill and we need to send a message to the American people that we're wise stewards of their money. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Colorado.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself the balance of our time.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, sitting and listening to this debate, it would be extremely easy to become completely confused. The proponents of this bill keep repeating the same mantra. They want to stop federal funding of abortion. They forget to mention that there is no federal funding of abortion. What they want to do is expand restrictions on funding for the first time into tax policy. Right now, under current law, we have the Hyde Amendment, which every year prevents federal funds from being used for abortion, except for in the cases of rape, incest, or the life of the mother. I don't like the Hyde Amendment. Lots of people don't like the Hyde Amendment, but it's the law. This bill, however, goes far beyond current law. Now my colleagues across the aisle want to expand these restrictions and make sure that individuals and businesses can't get complete women's health care in their health insurance with their own money without paying for a tax increase. Businesses who right now get tax relief for having full health insurance now would not be able to get it. Let me say this again. At a time when everybody in this House, certainly everybody on the other side of the aisle, is saying we can't raise taxes, the leadership of this House is supporting raising taxes to advance a social policy. I don't think, Madam Speaker, that this was in the Republican pledge to America. Madam Speaker, I don't know how many times the Republican leadership is going to make this Congress vote to strip American women of their access to health care with their own money. But I, for one, would like to encourage them to spend their time getting our country back to work rather on an extreme agenda that the American people didn't ask for, that they didn't want, that is going nowhere in the U.S. Senate, and if it did, would be vetoed by the President of the United States. I yield back the balance of my time and urge the members to vote no on this ill-conceived piece of legislation.
All time for debate on the bill has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 237, the previous question is ordered on the bill as amended. Pursuant to Clause 1C of Rule 19, further consideration of H.R. 3 is postponed. Pursuant to House Resolution 236 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House in the Committee of the Whole, House on the State of the Union, for the further consideration of H.R. 1214. Will the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Mrs. Myrick, kindly take the chair?
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for further consideration of H.R. 1214, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to repeal mandatory funding for school-based health center construction.
When the Committee of the Whole rose on Monday, May 3rd, a request for a recorded vote on Amendment Number 2 printed in the Congressional Record, offered by the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, had been postponed. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 8, proceedings will now resume on those amendments printed in the Congressional Record on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. Amendment Number 1 by Ms. Jackson Lee of Texas. Amendment Number 2 by Mr. Pallone of New Jersey. The Chair will reduce to 5 minutes of time for any electronic vote after the first vote in this series. The unfinished business is a request for a recorded vote on Amendment Number 1, printed in the Congressional Record by the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, on which further proceedings were postponed and on which the yeses prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment Number 1, printed in the Congressional Record, offered by Ms. Jackson Lee of Texas.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House has wrapped up work on a bill that blocks taxpayer funding of abortion, including tax breaks or subsidies for insurance plans. Final vote on that still to come. The House finishing up work now on a couple of amendments to a bill they debated yesterday. H.R. 1214 is a bill that would end a $100 million program that offers federal funds for the construction of school-based health facilities. A couple of amendment votes here. This one by Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, an amendment which would require Health and Human Services to post information regarding the total amount of unobligated funds. And one more amendment vote will follow that. It's going to be a whole series of votes we expect here in the next few minutes. And what we plan to do is bring you in a little bit some of today's White House briefing with Jay Carney. The White House today, President Obama today, saying the White House will not release a photo of Osama bin Laden's body. We'll have more about that with Jay Carney's briefing coming up. First, though, we want to give you some detail on the bill that just finished debate on the House floor, the Bill H.R. 3 on federal funding of abortion. We spoke to a Capitol Hill reporter earlier today. We're joined by Julie Rovner of NPR. How does this House abortion funding bill propose to change current law?
Well, of course, the backers of it say what it merely does is writes into permanent policy the Hyde Amendment, which, of course, is the annual funding restriction that gets put into the labor HHS appropriation bill every year that bans federal abortion funding. But what opponents say is that it goes considerably further than that. Specifically, what it does is it limits tax subsidies for people who have abortion as part of a health insurance policy. And, of course, many people do. Now, this isn't everyone. These are mostly individuals and small businesses who buy insurance, who have abortion as part of a health insurance policy, or people who might pay for an abortion using a tax-preferred account. That would be a flexible spending account or a health reimbursement arrangement or one of those kinds of accounts. And that would now be banned. So there would be no more sort of tax subsidy for anything that has to do with an abortion, either directly paying for an abortion or a health insurance policy that would cover abortion. And that, of course, has never been affected by the Hyde Amendment before. The Hyde Amendment has only applied to direct federal funding of abortion. So this is definitely breaking new ground for federal abortion funding bans.
What can you tell us about the arguments opponents have against this bill?
Well, of course, they're saying that this would be really a tax penalty, and it would raise taxes for a lot of people, and indeed it would. And we've already seen some concerns raised by small businesses. They're saying that, you know, a lot of times coverage of abortion is kind of buried within other things, and they might not even be aware that they have it. They might have to drop their existing health insurance policy, buy new policies, get, you know, re-underwritten as it would, which can be expensive, and that this is really not this would result in a big paperwork burden, a big time burden, that they could end up inadvertently losing tax credits and subsidies that they now have. And of course, there are then abortion rights backers who say that this is really sort of a grab at women's ability to use their own private money to exercise, you know, their right to what is still a legal medical procedure.
What sort of quandary does this present to Democrats who would normally vote for many anti-abortion bills that come up in the House?
Well, you know, it is a difficult vote for certainly some anti-abortion Democrats, and I would think for some, you know, sort of anti-abortion Republicans too. They want to side with, you know, their anti-abortion constituents, but they also want to side with their small business constituents, and this does put them a bit at odds. Also, I think there was some trouble with the drafting of this bill when it got to the Ways and Means Committee. The head of the Joint Committee on Taxation said that it wasn't drafted quite, I think, as sponsors thought. It could affect more small businesses than they'd intended. There's also sort of the awkwardness of you've got the possibility, because there are still exemptions for rape and incest, you'd have the possibility of the IRS having to become sort of the abortion police, finding out if someone's trying to actually claim a tax, some kind of a tax preference for an abortion. Was this really the result of rape or incest? And, do you have the documentation to prove it? That could be awkward.
Well, assuming it passes the House today, what chances does the bill have in the Senate?
Well, no one thinks it has too much of a chance in the Senate, but of course there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about this in the Senate, would like to see it brought up. So you could see it, you could see people trying to attach it to something, or trying to attach it to something that's must pass, or trying to attach, for instance, to, to the debt ceiling negotiation. So, one wouldn't necessarily say it has no chance in the Senate. The President has issued a veto threat on it. But again, President Clinton, who was also, in favor of abortion rights, ended up signing many anti-abortion restrictions into law, even though he didn't want to, because they came to his desk attached to other things that he basically had to sign. So that's not to say that this bill has no chance.
Well, in addition to the abortion funding bill, the House is back at work on bills repealing parts of the health care law, the funding for parts of the health care law. What have they done so far this week? What do they work on today?
Well, yesterday they passed 238 to 183, a bill that would rescind funding for planning grants for states to try and start to get up and running these exchanges, the marketplaces that would help people, again, individuals and small businesses, buy health insurance. And this is starting in 2014 when the requirement comes online that people have insurance. This is kind of ironic, if you will. Yes, the CBO said it would save $14 billion, and that's because it would kind of delay these exchanges from getting up and running. But the CBO also said that it would have the effect of the federal government ending up running a lot of these exchanges instead of the states. Well, of course, the Republicans who are pushing this bill have said that they don't like the idea of the federal government having so much control over the health care system, and yet this bill would result in the federal government having more control over the health care system. But again, this is part of this Republican effort to, if they can't repeal the entire law, they'd like to repeal pieces of the law. And they're also debating another bill that they will vote on that would rescind a very small piece, $100 million for construction grants, basically for school-based health clinics.
Keeping an eye on the health care debate and more. Julie Rovner with NPR. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
And the House is finishing up work on that bill which would repeal mandatory funding for the construction of school-based health centers. A couple of amendment votes here. This first one, 15 minutes, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, requiring Health and Human Services to post information regarding the total amount of unobligated funds. One more amendment vote to follow that. Still to come, though, is a vote on that the abortion bill, the abortion funding bill, which is just finished on the House floor. General debate just wrapped up on that. Earlier today, President Obama told CBS in an interview for 60 Minutes that he will not release a photo of Osama bin Laden's body following the raid and the killing of the terrorist in Pakistan on Sunday. Today at the White House, Jay Carney answered a number of questions, obviously, about that during his briefing with reporters. We're going to show you as much of that briefing, the top of that briefing at least, as we can during the remainder of this vote here on the House floor.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I take your questions, I'd just like to say to you that the President has made the decision not to release any of the photographs of the deceased Osama bin Laden. And rather than, first, I will give you the language the President used when he was recently interviewed about an hour ago to explain his decision. This is an interview with CBS 60 Minutes, Steve Croft. The President was asked, well, he said that they were discussing when bin Laden's body was taken out of the compound. The President was asked about how they knew it was him, and he said, when they landed, we had very strong confirmation at that point that it was him. Photographs had been taken. facial analysis indicated that, in fact, it was him. We hadn't yet done DNA testing, but at that point we were 95% sure. Question, did you see the pictures? The President, yes. Question, what was your reaction when you saw them? The President, it was him. Question, why didn't you release them? The President, we discussed this internally. Keep in mind that we are absolutely certain that this was him. We've done DNA sampling and testing, and so there is no doubt that we killed Osama bin Laden. It is important for us to make sure that very graphic photos of somebody who was shot in the head are not floating around as an incitement to additional violence or as a propaganda tool. That's not who we are. We don't trot out this stuff as trophies. The fact of the matter is, this was somebody who was deserving of the justice that he received. And I think Americans and people around the world are glad that he is gone. But we don't need to spike the football. And I think that given the graphic nature of these photos, it would create some national security risk. And I've discussed this with Bob Gates and Hillary Clinton and my intelligence teams, and they all agree. Question, there are people in Pakistan, for example, who say, look, this is all a lie. Obama, this is another American trick. Osama is not dead. The President, the truth is that we were monitoring worldwide reaction. There is no doubt that that bin Laden is dead. Certainly, there is no doubt among Al-Qaeda members that he is dead. And so we don't think that a photograph in and of itself is going to make any difference. There are going to be some folks who deny it. The fact of the matter is, you will not see bin Laden walking on this earth again. That's the conclusion of the excerpt, and I think states rather thoroughly why the President made the decision that he did. With that, I'll take your questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Jay. Based on those comments, the President made a very compelling case why not to release the photos. So what was the internal debate, and was he ever seriously considering releasing photos?
Well, obviously the photos didn't exist until bin Laden was killed. So there's not a great deal of time between then and the decision. There are obviously arguments to be made on either side. The fact of the matter is, as the President described, these are graphic photographs of someone who was shot in the face, or the head, rather, and it is not in our national security interests to allow those images, as has been in the past been the case, to become icons to rally opinion against the United States. The President's #1 priority is the safety and security of American citizens at home and Americans abroad. There's no need to release these photographs to establish Osama bin Laden's identity, and he saw no other compelling reason to release them given the potential for national security risks, and further because he believes, as he said so clearly, this is not who we are.
So was he, in the time period you're discussing, the moment he had the photos until now that we know the answer, was he grappling with this at all, or was his stand clear and he was just gathering other opinions?
Well, I don't know about the evolution of his decision-making process. When I've heard him discuss it, he held this opinion very firmly. And he has held that opinion very firmly. But this is a very short period of time. Obviously, he wanted to hear the opinions of others, but he was very clear about his view on this, and obviously his decision is categorical.
One other question. Director Panetta, in one of the interviews he did yesterday, said the government obviously has been talking about how best to do this, but I don't think there was any question that ultimately a photograph would be presented to the public.
Well,
how do you explain
what
that?
I would say is that there are compelling arguments for, in general, the release of information, and you know, there's a discussion to be had about the pros and cons, and the President engaged in that discussion and made a decision. Every member of the national security team is aware of and expressed the downside of releasing, which is, I think, weighed heavily on the President in terms of the potential risks it would pose to Americans serving abroad and Americans traveling abroad. So the idea that this was 100% obvious. I mean, yeah, that's the fact of the matter is the president never gets to make a decision that's 100% obvious, because those kind of decisions never get to his desk.
Well, that I understand, but I'm saying his comment was there was no question that a photograph were legal. Obviously,
Well,
that's wrong.
the thing is, the president made this decision. He consulted members of his national security team. There's reasonable arguments to be made. The president felt very strongly and made the decision he made. Yes?
Jay, you talked yesterday a lot about the firefight. Who was it that was shooting back at the U.S. commandos?
Been as helpful as we can be to provide as much information as we can. And in terms of the operational details, we have gotten to the point where we cannot cross lines because of the necessity for preserving the methods and operational techniques and capabilities of the kinds of forces that were used in this case. We've gone to the limit of our ability to do that and still maintain some of the things we need to maintain and be kept secret. So that's a long way of beginning my answer to say that we've revealed a lot of information. We've been as forthcoming with facts as we can be. A lot of information came out quickly when we needed to clarify some of the information that we had. As more information came in, we provided that. But in terms of further details of the operation, I don't have any for you. You're welcome to obviously consult with the Defense Department about them, but I don't have any more information. I'm not going to discuss beyond what I've said already the operational details.
But some things, as you acknowledged yesterday, have changed as the information came in. Is the fact of a firefight solid?
You heard the account that I read yesterday, and that is information that I provided, and I'm just simply saying I'm not going further than that.
Okay. I guess I'm just curious about, you mentioned
I'm not going to go further than what I said yesterday. So we can we can ask a lot about operational details. The answer to your question is certainly contained within the account I read yesterday. But we're at a point where we need to be mindful of the necessity to protect our ability in the future to go after other bad guys, perhaps in the same way we went after this one. And some of the capacities that we have, the methods that we use, need to be protected and not compromised.
Let me ask one follow-up question. Are you concerned that the way in which bin Laden was killed and buried at sea might hurt the president's ability to reach out to the Muslim world, as he has tried to over the last 2 years?
The efforts that were made to give Osama bin Laden an appropriate burial, following Islamic precepts and traditions, were considerable. However, I would also say that there is nothing, the respect that was shown to him and his body was far greater than the respect that Osama bin Laden showed to the victims on 9/11 or any of his other victims. And that's because that's who we are. So we feel very comfortable with the fact that we took extraordinary measures to show that respect to the traditions of the Islamic faith.
My question is about the president's specific outreach to the Muslim world. How this is
I think that you heard the president speak on Sunday evening about the unbelievably important fact to make clear that President Bush made clear before President Obama that our efforts in the fight against terrorists, against al-Qaeda, are not aimed at Islam, are not aimed at Muslims. And the fact is that the cooperation and assistance provided by Muslims around the world is essential to our fight. And it's not about them, because Osama bin Laden was not a Muslim leader. He was a mass murderer of people around the world, including Muslims. So we obviously believe that we were absolutely within our rights to go after the most wanted man in the world, the most wanted terrorist in the world, the man ordered the attacks on so many Americans and killed so many Americans. And it needs to be recognized that this is seen as a good thing throughout the world. And yet, because of who we are, we took extraordinary measures to show the kind of respect that was shown in his burial. Yes, Jake.
What do you say to the families of the victims of 9/11 and the USS Cole and other terrorist acts by Al-Qaeda? These family members say they want the photo released so they can have some closure. What's the White House response?
Well, I'm not going to go beyond the words of the President, and I will rephrase them to say that there is no question at all that Osama bin Laden is dead. He will not walk this earth again. We have established beyond any doubt, through DNA evidence, facial recognition, visual recognition, the naming of him by individuals on that compound, that Osama bin Laden was shot and killed on Sunday night. He is dead. And that, I think, Americans feel a great sense of closure because of that.
Is there any other, I understand the photographs are off the table, is there any other evidence of his death that you're still considering releasing, the President is still considering releasing, whether the video of his burial at sea, whether the DNA evidence, is there anything else that could be released?
Well, I will simply say that this decision applies to all visual evidence, and in terms of discussions that might be had to go into more detail about how the DNA evidence was analyzed and collected, how the facial recognition evidence was analyzed and collected, and how the experts reached their conclusion that this was, without any shred of doubt, Osama bin Laden. I'm sure that information might be made available, will be made available in the future. But this decision that I cited, the President made, has to do with the visual evidence, the photographic evidence.
And lastly, the CIA Director, Leon Panetta, said in a closed-door briefing on Capitol Hill about the Pakistani government that they either were involved or are incompetent. Is that the position of the White House?
I assume you mean by a closed-door briefing, classified briefing? I have no comment. Chip. Oh, sorry, Dan.
I just want to clarify, you said that the President, based on your observations, had always held the position that these photos should not be released?
Well, I don't know. I just meant that we're now 2.5 days since this took place, that I know he had this, I heard him express this view yesterday, but there was still, he was gathering the thoughts and views of others on his team. So long held is an impossible statement to make since we're only talking about a couple of days.
He had made up his mind and wanted just to open it up for opinions to sway him as to whether or not they should be released?
The President has a national security team, and he wanted to hear the opinions of others, obviously. That's how he makes decisions in this White House, and he wants to hear, as he did with the decision to authorize this mission, which I think has been reported was not a decision that every member of his team supported or thought was, that people had reservations, obviously, because it was a very risky mission. But he, this is the process that he undertakes because he believes that that's the way he wants his presidency to function. He wants the unvarnished opinions and advice and assessments of his top advisors. And in a situation like this, the last thing he wants is a bunch of people telling him what they think he wants to hear.
Can you give us a sense of whether or not it was the majority opinion of those who were giving him advice that the photos should not be released?
It was a majority opinion, yes.
And also, can you give us anything more about this team that will be going to, I guess, brief former President Bush?
I don't have any information on that. Yes, Chip.
Thanks, Jay. I know you said you didn't want to get into operational details, but you kind of opened the door.
But you can try.
But you kind of opened the door on one thing. You said that he was shot in the face, and then you corrected yourself and said rather the head. Were you saying that he was not shot in the face?
No, I simply, he was shot above the neck, let's say that.
I think we'd rather go with Ted if we're given the choice, but you're not saying it wasn't.
I don't have any details to give you on that.
Why has the President decided not to speak at Ground Zero tomorrow?
The President thinks it's entirely fitting and appropriate to visit the site of Ground Zero in the wake of this significant and cathartic moment for the American people. And he wants to lay a wreath to honor the victims, to honor the first responders who so courageously rushed to the scene and in many cases gave their own lives to try to save others, to honor the spirit of unity in America that we all felt in the wake of that terrible attack. I think the power of that requires no words. And he will also meet with families of the victims and first responders in private.
On whether to speak and to use his expression.
On this vote,
don't forget spiking the ball.
The President. Remarkably large audience in this country. A remarkable number of Americans saw him speak because the word traveled so fast about this monumental event that had occurred. And so no, there was no debate.
Question on the New York Times CBS poll. His approval rating jumped 11 points from 46 to 57, but at the same time his approval on the economy is the lowest ever in this poll, 34%. If you could just comment on if you think there's any significance to all that.
I think that
on this vote, the ayes are 207 and the nays are 218. The amendment is not adopted.
The committee will come to order. The committee will come to order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor. The committee will come to order. How's that? The committee will come to order. The chair would ask all present to rise for the purpose of a moment of silence. The chair asks that the committee now observe a moment of silence in remembrance of our brave men and women in uniform who've given their lives in the service of our nation in Iraq and Afghanistan, and their families, and of all who have served in the armed forces and their families.
Okay. Go ahead. Without objection, 5-minute voting will continue. The unfinished business is a request for a recorded vote on Amendment Number 2 printed in the Congressional Record by the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone, which further proceedings were postponed and on which a yes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment Number 2, printed in the Congressional Record, offered by Mr. Pallone of New Jersey.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And this is one more amendment vote to H.R. 1214, a bill that would end a $100 million program that offers federal funds for the construction of school-based health facilities. The amendment would require a Government Accountability Office study on school districts in need of federal health care funds, offered by Frank Pallone, Democrat of New Jersey. It's a 5-minute vote, and based on the news from the White House today of President Obama saying that he would not release a photo of Osama bin Laden's body, we're going to take you back to the briefing from today for more comments and questions.
The Great Depression, I think that gas prices have weighed heavily on Americans as they try to make ends meet, and it's entirely understandable why that sentiment is out there, because people are struggling, and people, in the case of how they're dealing with these high gas prices, are suffering. So that's we are fully aware of that, and that's why this president, I think you will see, will continue his focus on growing the economy, creating jobs, on working with Congress to pass legislation that does that, working with Congress to take measures that reduce our deficit, that invest in those areas that allow us to grow, allow us to compete, make sure that we educate our kids so we can be competitive in the 21st century. He doesn't, I mean, the remarkable thing to me, being on the inside now, is you always hear this, right, is that the train never stops. The speed, the rapidity of events and the demands are so great. And what we've seen in these historic times since the president came into office is that has been the case and then some. And his focus on the economy has not wavered, even as he has dealt very quietly with only a select number of people with this mission in its from its inception to its execution, and that focus will continue. It's there's no, the two things that he thinks about the most are the security of the American people and the economic security of the American people, and at the same time. And so that's the economy continues to be a major priority.
Yes, we're hearing more and more lawmakers are seeing the bin Laden photo or photos. To be clear, are they just being shown the photos, or are there copies floating around the Hill?
I'm not aware of any photos being floating or being shown.
Bin Laden, Sunday when the raid happened, was there any opportunity for U.S. officials to question him before he was shot?
Again, I'm not going to get into operational details about beyond what we've done. I mean, what I've said in the past yesterday is what I would say today. So, what happened on Sunday night is that an incredibly courageous team of U.S. personnel, entered a foreign country in darkness on an incredibly risky mission, executed it at great risk to their own personal safety, executed that mission with great professionalism, and accomplished a goal that this country had sought for 9.5 years, in a mission that dramatically minimized collateral damage and civilian casualties, that was pulled off without any casualties among American personnel, and it resulted in the bringing to justice of Osama bin Laden. We have enormous regard for what was accomplished on Sunday by those men.
Oh, they're American heroes. I just didn't know if they got a question.
Again, I would just refer for those questions to the Defense Department.
Last question real fast. Any attempt by American officials to interview, question bin Laden's wife, who was there at the scene?
Not that I'm aware of, but you might ask the State Department that. Yeah.
Are there any U.S. officials involved in the questioning of anybody else at that compound with
I think, I mean, that goes to that, I think what Mike just asked, and I don't have an answer. So we obviously cooperate and have an important relationship with Pakistan and with the Pakistani government, but I don't have any information with which to answer that question.
Are they sending briefings of their
Again,
interrogation?
I just don't know, so I don't have an answer.
Is there going to be an updated narrative on what you read yesterday?
I think I made pretty clear that we have provided a great deal of information and have made an effort to get that information to you very quickly. The nature of this operation.
The ayes are 205, the nays are 210. The amendment is not adopted. There being no further amendments, the committee rises.
All right, here we go.
Madam Chairman,